Right now, let's talk about, I should say, one of the schools that didn't have much to brag about until recently, but they're turning things around, potentially. North Carolina Tar Heels men's basketball. Here's the question. We're going to do our best to try to answer it. Here's the question. Is UNC turning a corner? Did something click? Are they turning something around? Or does it just look that way because they're playing some of the bottom end of the ACC competition for a stretch?
Is it all fool's gold?
Is it all fool's gold? Are you tall or are others shrinking around you? 3 straight wins. Syracuse, NC State, Virginia. First of all, 3 straight wins, fantastic. And there's some other stats analytically that make it seem like you're turning a corner. However, that right there, Syracuse, NC State, Virginia, not exactly the 1927 Yankees. Meaning not Murderer's Row. So you have to decipher what's real and what, to use Dennis's term, is fool's gold. I'll tell you this right now. Eye test, they have flashed Carolina basketball. There's been moments where you're watching it and you forget that this has been an exceptionally down year. You just see the Carolina blue, you see the cool sneakers, they're getting up and down, and you're like, hey, this looks familiar. There's also moments where you're like, wow, that other team really can't shoot, huh? Well, they're not really making their jumpers, are they? Like, it's a little bit of both. Now, here's the argument that they've turned a corner. They are doing something different. They are doing something different. It's not the definition of insanity. It's not doing the same thing over and over again, hoping for different results. It's not bashing your head against a wall thinking, this time my head won't hurt. They're playing a bigger lineup more often. Now, the person bearing the brunt of that has mostly been somebody like Elliot Cadeau, who's playing less minutes than he's played really this entire season and even most parts of last year. But because with R.J. Davis and Cadeau and Trimble on the floor, they are just an inherently undersized perimeter group. By playing Cadeau less, you get larger individuals on the floor. For the most part, that's been Drake Powell, a guy who I and the show have been advocating for more minutes for a long time. When he gets out there, they're a different squad. Hubert Davis, the head coach, talked about Drake Powell's length, specifically on defense, and how that benefits them.
Defensively, he can rebound, he can shoot threes, he can attack the basket, finish above the rim, get second chance opportunities, knock down free throws. And so I think the combination with him and Witt give us a really nice, big, athletic lineup that really helps us on both ends.
It does. It helps you on both ends not have to cover for people. And it's, by the way, it's not just getting Drake Powell in more. They're playing more lineups with Jalen Withers and Van Allen Lubin on the floor at the same time. They're just working more size onto the floor. And like I said, against Syracuse, NC State, and Virginia, it's working. Withers is knocking down outside jumpers. 4 of 6 this past game.
Yeah, just a traditional stretch 4, looking like it.
It is another one of those moments. We've got a few of these in the ACC. You're telling me you could do that? That.
Wait a second.
But it does. It just puts more height, more size on the floor, which makes it so R.J. Davis is less of a liability just from a size perspective. Elliot Cadeau, less of a liability from a size perspective. It's something different. Again, going back to our original question. Mm-hmm. Is that the eureka moment? Are we going to look back at the UNC season and have there be pre-playing the big guys more and post-playing the big guys more? Or does it just seem like that little tweak is fixing everything because you made that little tweak and then played a lower stretch of the ACC? And by the way, I don't think we're going to get an official answer on this for a little bit because their next game's at Florida State. That's tonight. Then they play versus Miami. They're horrendous. Then you play at Virginia Tech. Middle of the pack might be a generous way to describe Virginia Tech this year. And then you get Duke. So, I mean, they could be 6-0 going into the Duke game, and I'm still sitting here going, did they turn a corner, or are they just playing bad competition? It's the curse of the ACC this year. You're not going to get big wins. You're not going to get tough tests unless you're playing one of three schools. Duke is one of them, and they play them at the end of the year, and then you would expect them to eventually run into at least a Clemson, a Louisville, somewhere in the ACC tournament, and that is where we'll start answering questions. But I don't think there's a doubt that UNC has not been, I'm talking past tense, good enough this year. But we have also seen teams find the switch and flip it late in a season. Matter of fact, UNC did it in Hubert Davis's first year, right? And people tend to remember that season only for where it finished. They were not a high seed. They made it to the Final Four. They made it to the national championship game. They had the wins over Coach K. They had the lead at halftime in the national championship game. That was a late switch for them. That was they figured something out late season.
Around this time.
Exactly. We saw with NC State last year. I know they don't want to be compared, but it is possible. The only piece of advice, right? Because play the big guys, don't play the big guys. It's got to be an observation. It's got to be an inside decision from the coaches. The only piece of advice is the other thing that has coincided with this turn is it seems like they've gotten a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. Right? It coincided with this uptick in play is it seems like the program as a whole got sick and tired of everybody saying how much they're struggling and how bad they are and how this isn't a Carolina team. And Hubert Davis had the comments on his radio show about how, and he was talking like structure and GMs and structure of the front office. The old Carolina way wasn't working anymore, and that blew up. It seems like that was a moment where everybody went, you know what? Forget it. And I kind of like that, right? Stay with the I'm not answering questions. Be a little hostile with the outside world. If that's what it takes to get your juices flowing enough to play like you've played the last 3 games, do it every time. Make up quotes, right? Have Hubert Davis in the pregame huddle. Did you see what this team said about you? No, what did they say? They said you stink. They said you can't, walk and chew gum at the same time. I don't know, whatever it takes to get your team riled up. Hubert Davis, one more quote here, one more soundbite, talked about the energy surrounding the team is different during their recent stretch.
I talked about the quietness of this team. Well, the level of quietness has, like the noise has gone up. Like just in shoot around today, and they were, yelling and jumping around. And at the beginning of the year, it was, I had to start it. And today, I just got to sit and watch it. And so the joy of being here, the joy of being together as a team and trying to become the best that we can be has really gotten better. And as I said before, it's always been a group that has enjoyed being together and being a team. From the start, the chemistry is a 10 out of a 10. They love being around each other.
Whatever it takes to get you into that mind space. Be loud, be angry, be whatever it is to get your team going.
He said and later on in the press conference on Saturday, he said that he's kind of poked the bear a little bit with guys in practice, like challenging them a little bit more, like getting them riled up a little bit more in practice, challenging them. I'm like, you know what? If that's what it takes. That's what it takes.
That would be like Christmas Day for me as a coach. When I recognize that I can poke the team and they respond well, it's like, oh, let's go. You get to be just like an antagonist. You get to go out there. How am I going to rile them up today? That sounds like a good time rather than other teams. And by the way, there's good teams in both kind of archetypes. Some teams you got to coddle and you got to make sure everybody's on the – no, if you can rile them up and that makes them play better, heck yeah, let's go.